Lester, Wushu engineer. I'm going to be analyzing some self-defense weapons in this video, but before I get onto topic, I need to first of all establish what we mean when we talk about self-defense weapons. There's a spurious idea that seems to be fairly prevalent amongst the average untrained person. When I say untrained, I mean people who do not have any kind of combat training. And that idea is that all they need to have in order to ensure that they can protect themselves is a weapon of some kind, a self-defense weapon. If they have this weapon, whatever it is, they will magically be able to fight off their attacker or attackers. That is a fantasy born out of ignorance. There are many tools and weapons that come with the claim that they're useful in self-defense. Items such as Kubotan keyrings, monkey fist style weighted keychains, short whips, various knives, folding batons, taser style electric discharge weapons, concealed carry handguns, pepper spray, the list goes on and on and on. Most of these weapons are either illegal or heavily regulated in Australia, so their effectiveness is pretty much a moot point if you're an Aussie. However, do they actually work as self-defense weapons? The answer may not be as clear as you think it is. You may think to yourself, a concealed carry handgun is probably one of the most effective self-defense weapons you could carry. Of course handguns work. Well, I would agree that a handgun, with its lethality and its range in combination with the fact that its effectiveness is more or less independent of the physical condition of the wielder, represents one of the most effective self-defense weapons available. However, there is still a certain percentage of people who attempt to use their handgun in self-defense and who have their own weapon turned against them in the attempt. This highlights what I wanted to stress about self-defense weapons. Without significant training, carrying one of the best self-defense weapons available is no guarantee that one will be able to defend oneself. In fact, those who are very well trained, who are honest and realistic, will concede that even with all the training in the world, there is still no guarantee that they'll be able to defend themselves in each and every circumstance. This becomes more and more evident as you go down the scale of self-defense weapon effectiveness and lethality. For instance, one of the variants, the variants of the Kubotan style keyring are often sold with glowing praises and borderline spurious claims about how effective they are in self-defense. Let me stress this next point. Effective use of a self-defense weapon requires significant, decent, current, and ongoing combat training combined with a very good grasp of how to fight in the first place. Without combat training and skill, all self-defense weapons, including handguns, can often be more of a hindrance than a help, because they may give a false sense of security and encourage bravado instead of avoidance behavior. In fact, some products that are available to assist in self-defense cannot be classed as weapons really, because they're either inefficient or unusable in terms of offensive capabilities. These are classed as self-defense tools rather than weapons. So in summary, without combat training, self-defense weapons and tools are not as effective as you may think. Self-defense weapons do not magically do the fighting for you. They provide small tactical, defensive, or offensive advantages, but you have to do the actual fighting yourself. Now, onto the topic, weapons of distraction. Distracting an opponent is a tactic that is as old as warfare itself. An insidious, cowardly, and disgusting modern example of this is the coward's punch. These are the kind of attacks that occur in nightclubs and bars around Australia, where the criminally violent perpetrators make use of accomplices to distract their victim while they punch them in the head from behind or when they're looking away, often leading to death or debilitating brain injury to be sustained by the victim. In fact, if you look at CCTV footage of street fights and attacks, you'll find that in most cases, the instigator of the fight will choose to attack when their victim is distracted by something and looks away. An example of the use of distraction in ancient combat can be seen in the traditional weapons used in Kung Fu practice, many of which are decorated with ribbons, brightly colored silk flags, and brightly colored tufts of fur. I've got, as an example, I have my old training dowel here with these little green and red flags at the end. This is one of the examples. These adornments are not purely decorative. The theory goes that as the weapon moves, so do the brightly colored adornments, potentially distracting an opponent from the true movement of the weapon itself. In fact, some of the weapons used were specially designed to enable the wielder to cause distraction at key tactical points in a fight and thus provide opportunities to press their attack. One of these specialist weapons is the fan. Fans were used in many Eastern nations, including China, Japan, and Korea, as weapons that could potentially be taken into restricted areas, such as the court, where overt weapons such as swords were disallowed. Many of these fans were either non-functional and made out of solid metal in order to be employed as nothing more complicated than a short, heavy club, while some, although openable, were reinforced with metal to enable them to survive the rigors of combat. It's clear that these examples were often used as striking weapons. However, it is also clear that some of the examples of fighting fans were more fragile and were not reinforced in any way but were still seen as self-defense tools. There are many examples of fighting systems that grew around the use of a more fragile fan as a self-defense tool that could accompany bare-hand fighting techniques and give the wielder a bit of a tactical advantage. Although these fans could not easily be used to strike at an opponent due to their fragility, the fighting systems that grew around them capitalized on their ability to deflect, cause interference, distract, disorient, and conceal the true movements of the defender. Even the sound of the fan's opening, which is quite loud and sudden, can be used to distract in much the same way as a modern flashbang grenade is used. So I have here my training fan, which makes quite a loud and distinctive sound when opened. Flashbang grenades are often used to stun and temporarily blind a target by overwhelming their senses with a loud sound and a bright light flash. So what about torches as self-defense tools? There are many self-defense professionals who recommend the use of a small, ultra-bright hand torch as a self-defense tool. I certainly class torches as tools rather than as weapons, because although you could certainly strike with them, and some of them even come with crenellations on the rim of the torch to be used as a striking surface, the offensive advantage that they provide is typically too small for them to be classed as a weapon. Intuitively, their use in self-defense certainly appears to have some merit. If you're approached by your garden variety thug or thugs in ye old proverbial dark alley, being able to temporarily night blind them may certainly give you a tactical and defensive advantage as you fight to get out of dodge, so to speak. In addition, there may be certain psychological advantages associated with the use of a torch. There is an automatic deer in the headlights reaction to being caught in a powerful torch beam, which could be used to establish authority and dominance prior to an altercation, or perhaps to dissuade a potential attacker. As I mentioned in my lengthy preamble, a torch cannot magically fight on your behalf. So when we say it's a self-defense tool, we're really talking about it giving you some form of advantage as you use your trained self-defense skills to navigate the self-defense situation. However, I have never seen anyone going to the trouble of proving this assertion objectively. So I decided to set up a bit of an experiment to see if I could find a significant improvement in my defensive capability when I used a torch. As with any experiment, this comes with a number of caveats, limitations, and sources of error. I'm not going to list them all, but I will mention some of them. I decided that the best way to test the effectiveness of a torch as a self-defense tool in a controlled environment was to measure its effect on an attacker's ability to land successful punches on me. In this test, I used my old 1000 lumen flashlight from Survival Laser. It's a little bit battered now, but it still gets the job done. According to the Survival Laser website, that 1000 lumen 5-mode flashlight was built using the high-performance Cree XML T6 emitter. The modes that are available in the unit are high, medium, low, strobe, and SOS. The emitter is rated at 1200 lumens, and the flashlight rating is from 900 to 1050 lumens. This is a good torch. In fact, one of the few torches that were available at the time in a heavier and tougher stainless steel housing. However, since I bought this torch about 6 years ago, there have been major developments in flashlight technology that I will address in a follow-up video. What I would do in order to test the torch's effectiveness was to run 3 tests. I would run a control test, a test with me using the continuous beam torch defensively, and a test with me using the strobing torch defensively. In each of these tests, my attacker's goal would be to land as many effective punches on me as possible within a 1-minute duration. In order to limit the variables, I would not be allowed to block, deflect, rotate my torso away, or otherwise conceal the target location. However, I could dodge, move, sidestep, and advance or retreat to limit the effectiveness of the attacks. In order to register my attacker's strikes, I built this rather agricultural piece of equipment. Essentially, it's a small switch built into a foam pad to be worn just below the chest. And I built this in such a way that it takes a certain amount of impact force. Don't know if you can hear that, but there's a certain amount of force that I have to exert on it in order to depress the switch. So slaps and touches are not going to be recorded by this unit. The output from the switch went to a simple digital counter on my speed and precision station. Every time my attacker landed a successful punch, the counter would increment by 1. The Wushu scientist agreed to be my attacker for the experiment. As a precaution, she wore authentic 80s style sunglasses in order to standardize the test conditions and to limit the potential for damage to her eyes from the torch. Now, some notable limitations to these tests were that they were done during the day, so background lighting was good. In darkened conditions, such as at night, the effect of the torch would more than likely be more pronounced. In addition, the target location was lower than where I was directing the torchlight from, which allowed the Wushu scientist to look down and somewhat avoid looking directly at the light. If I had directed the light more from the target location, the effect may have also been more pronounced. In addition, there were a lot of distractions present during the tests, such as the wire trailing from me from the switch mounted on my chest, the timer, and trying to keep our location in shot of the camera, all of which had some effect on our effectiveness and thus on the test. However, despite all these caveats and more, let's look at the tests. Can you just test to see if, just do some test strikes? 4. Okay, so that's registered 4. I'm going to reset, start the timer. So that was 9.
Okay. Alright, you ready?
Yep.
Start. 10, 9.
So that was 4.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're shielding your eyes.
Good. Whew. That was hard. That was 3.
So 3. So what were your thoughts about fighting? First of all, control.
Yeah. So I found like the control, like it's tricky to get enough force into it to make it go.
Yeah. Oh, that's clearly
and
because
the accuracy as well. It's fairly small.
small
space.
target, and I'm also playing with the range to
Yeah.
ensure that you're not going to get it. I can't.
And you're very good at that.
I can't interpose anything, but what I can do is I can play with range.
And you're also absorbing power a lot of the time, which is taking away those strikes.
Yeah.
Um,
What about
so
the continuous torch?
I found it was harder.
Yeah.
Difficult to get my accuracy. Accuracy is a big thing. And even tracking you was difficult. But yeah, the biggest thing was the strobe. That was really nasty. If I had to choose what to use, definitely that I think it reduced my strikes by a third.
So essentially, we did 2 control tests. In both of them, we got 9. You got 9 effective strikes in with no torch. For the test with the continuous beam, that was dropped to less than half. So it was 4 strikes, whereas with the strobe, it dropped down to 3, which is literally a third of the effective strikes actually coming in. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, subjectively, based on your opinion. I mean, objectively, we've proved that there is a significant difference, but
it was,
subjectively.
Yeah, subjectively, it was very, very difficult. you saw me automatically actually using my hand to try and shield
Yeah,
it. I wasn't trying to cheat. It's just like
it's automatic.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable and very hard to know where you are.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I was kind of just guessing with my strikes. So yeah, definitely very effective.
Okay, well, I think that kind of gets what we wanted to do. Proves kind of what we anticipated.
So, yeah.
But really interesting results.
Yep.
As mentioned in the interview, we actually ran 2 control tests, but did not include the footage of the first one because we went a few seconds over time. However, in both controls, the Wushu scientists' number of effective punches, 9, was identical. To reiterate, using a continuous beam torch reduced the Wushu scientists' performance by over 55% to a total of 4 effective punches. When the strobe feature was used, her performance was reduced by over 66% to 3 effective punches. These are considerable reductions in effectiveness, which, combined with the Wushu scientists' subjective experience, confirms that torches can definitely be used as self-defense tools. I hope to follow this up with another video about the exciting, currently available modern flashlight technology once I have run some trials and tests to put it through its paces. If the products pass muster, we hope to include these in our line of products available for sale on the Wushu Workshop website. So watch this space. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers!